But really, what we have seen as the power of incumbency in the past is that you have money to go to the central bank and collect raw cash and just use it to bribe people, or use it to suborn them, or use it to buy votes, use it to deal with INEC officers. And incumbency again has been, you use the power of the security agencies to go in massive force and so on. So that while we still see some of that, is certainly in terms of the amount of security, in inverted commas, that is put for especially when we're having these individual gubernatorial elections, that actually we have not really seen it in terms of doing things that will make you very popular with the electorate, not just directly handing out bags of rice or tins of tomato paste or whatever. I mean, we've all seen a situation where in foreign countries, especially where the election period is not fixed, the finance minister comes out with a budget and people say, this budget is a straw in the wind. There are a lot of giveaways there for the voters, and therefore they discern that it must be an election coming.
Like in the UK, again, for instance.
The Chancellor's budget is a lot there for the taxpayer. Therefore, they expect that, and he's preparing with these giveaways to endear his party to the electorate. Now, of course, the electorate does not have to be endeared. The electorate can say, at last, we've got something, now get out. So it can be counterproductive. But the point that I'm making is that we as voters, we can observe these things and we can say, is this a genuine policy which is aimed at poverty alleviation and so on and so forth? Or is it just an attempt at the last minute, at 5 minutes to midnight, to sway us into into voting for a party? But the fact is that no matter what the objective is, it cannot force you to vote for that party.
Now, there are 91 registered parties in Nigeria. There are two big parties, as people say. So many people tend to see it in terms of APC or PDP, but there are 89 other parties. Surely parties that have not been in power at the federal or state level should also be able to influence events.
Absolutely.
And citizens should be able to have the confidence that they can walk through those parties. We were discussing earlier the example of the UK Independence Party, UKIP,
yes,
in the Brexit elections. I mean, UKIP is one of the smallest parties in the UK.
Oh no, it's not so much that it's small, it's that apart from members of the European Parliament, it hasn't actually won any elections within Britain.
Within the UK. Yeah. I mean, they had one defector MP.
Yes, they had one defector.
MP,
one carpet crosser.
Yes, and he lost.
He lost.
Okay. But UKIP forced Brexit to happen.
Exactly.
More or less. And Brexit is the biggest political issue
it's
in Europe.
Well, not in Europe, but it's certainly going to have a massive effect on British politics and the fate of the British nation going forward. And I think that the point that I wanted to take from that was that because we tend to have this approach in Nigeria that the only important thing is to be on the winning side. And again, the Ideas program wants voters to look more critically and see whether they can't influence policies by supporting other parties, by refusing to be straitjacketed into this a two-party system. Because the more we buy into that, the more we make it inevitable that those will be the only options available to us. So it's important that we keep our eyes and ears open. Now, we've seen in regards to this coming election that there have been various attempts at coalition. For example, the
CUPP.
There was the CUPP. Earlier there was the attempt by certain candidates to decide which of them would be the one that they would all support
for the
pact. Now that didn't go through. But I think that rather than Nigerians saying, oh, they're all the same and so on and so forth, I think that we should again look at it, because maybe their mistake was in focusing only on the presidential issue. And with the CUPP, I mean, I don't have a political crystal ball, but it would surprise me if the presidential candidate from that is not from the PDP, which is the major party in it. But there are other parties in CUPP, and they're contesting at various levels. And so the question is going to be, will the pact hold, if it holds at the presidential level, will it also hold at the level of State House of Assembly, or at the level of House of Representatives, or gubernatorial elections? Well, I should say that maybe when you come to discuss Osun State, you will know whether CUPP is a working pact or not. But because it seems to me that some of the candidates in the pact are still contesting against each other. There's been no coming out to say, well, we all in this CUPP, we are all supporting the so-and-so candidate, whether it is PDP, SDP, or whatever it is. But there's, you know, a week is a long time in politics, as they say. So we should be looking out for the possibility that by members of the pact deciding to support at different levels individual legislators, they could in fact find that some of these smaller parties end up sending a very popular person to one of the legislative houses.
Okay. Lastly, we're running out of time. We can't talk about corruption in politics without touching on the apparent disappointment of a lot of citizens in the incumbent government. They are saying, oh, this government came to power on an anti-corruption platform, but there has been some corruption in this government.
Yes.
What is it that is going on? Is it that people are angry and disappointed that the anti-corruption government has found itself or some of its officials being involved in corruption? Or is it that once you are a government in power, it is inevitable that you will disappoint people?
Well, definitely a government in power is going to disappoint people. But I want to say that one of the things that the Ideas program would hope to encourage, when I say that we want voters to start thinking for themselves, I think it's important that we get them to understand that the issue, because as I said, I happen to have been at the Bar Association conference last month, in Abuja, where the Nigerian Bar Association, and I was on a panel where one of the panel members said that corruption under this administration is worse than it ever was under the previous administration. That at least the previous administration, it was open and you know, almost like an all-comers affair. Whereas under this administration, it's secretive and restricted to a few select people. And the thing that struck me was the way that the audience, which was of learned people like myself, they all stood, they were cheering. Some of them were standing up and cheering and clapping. And I thought
it was a standing ovation.
Well, not quite, but it got a lot of cheers. And for me, I thought that, is that because people only see it through the narrow prism of political advantage for one side and political disadvantage for the other? And that we, the people who are actually affected by the corruption, whether it is the open all-comers affair of the previous or the secretive select few of the current, as alleged, is it that that doesn't matter to us? I would like the Ideas program to go beyond saying corruption is useful when it only as a tool to beat my political opponent with. Rather, I would want us to say, this corruption affects us and we are going to affect corruption.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. You're on social media.
Yeah, I wanted to say that listeners who want to communicate with us, they should look out for us on Twitter at the moment, and our address is at IDEAS Radio NG. You can communicate with us and say
how about with you?
You can communicate with me. Oh, I'm the at Naijama, which is NAIJAMA.
Or just search for Ayo Obe on Twitter.
Yeah, you can search for Ayo Obe on Twitter.
Okay.
But for this program, it is the Ideas program, because sometimes on Ideas, on my Nigema handle, I could be talking about all sorts of rubbish, and you might not want to read that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sure some listeners may have some questions for you. If you can stick around for a few minutes while we speak with judges on the Oshun updates, what we expect will happen in Oshun, and if listeners have calls, we can take calls for you as well, if you don't mind. So stay tuned. We'll be back in about 3 minutes after the ads on Countdown 2019.